Hey guys, this is the Bite-Sized Weekly, where we try to bring you some of the biggest stories from the week regarding, entertainment, business, politics, really anything that stands out to us, and we can give you a comprehensive kind of commentary on it. So, by the way, my name's Soham, and
And I'm Harish.
we'll be your co-hosts for this podcast. Uh, so yeah, let's jump right in with our list today. Harish,
Yeah.
start.
Our first topic is Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul, right? So as you know, Logan Paul is a famous YouTube influencer. Mayweather, famous fighter, boxing champion. Um, so what recently happened is here. Let me share my screen here 1 second.
Yeah,
So
I know they were gonna fight.
yeah. So what happened was is that his last post about it, right, was I think December 6th, 2020, right?
Right.
This is his first post talking about his exhibition match against Logan Paul, right? He called him out on Twitter too, I think, right? So this was the whole like little video, right? This is like the whole thing that stirred up the whole media about like the whole fight between them. And then
Right.
afterwards, if you look at it, um, you see no mention of it, right? Except Jake Paul, right? Jake Paul announces Mayweather as his trainer for KSI fight, right? I think this is like clickbait or something, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at what Mayweather says, Jake Paul is talking about he don't do exhibitions. Them two bullshit boxing matches he had were exhibitions. They were not against real professional fighters. Then he goes to talk about how what's it? He Logan Paul. What's it? Jake Paul tries to act like a black person, right? And then he's not really one of them, right?
Yeah.
He's a fake professional fighter,
Right.
right? Um, and then if you look at it now, right? He's in Aruba chilling. I mean, his fight was announced for February 26th, right?
Right.
And we don't see anything about it, right? So I decided, all right, it's already been like 6 days, basically a week since then. So
Right.
I was like, all right, let's search it up. Like, what's happening, right? So just yesterday, article basically apparently the fight is to be determined, right? They don't know when it's going to happen, right? They said, originally it was scheduled for February 20th, but uh, apparently Mayweather hasn't made any mention of the fight, right? They
Right.
didn't like sign the deal or something.
Right.
So um we don't know anything about it, right? And that's like pretty big, right? This is like especially for Logan Paul,
Yeah.
like the whole KSI fight, right? He lost it. He wanted some, comeback, right? Even
Exactly.
even though we already basically knew, or at least I think that Mayweather would have won that fight either way, right?
Right.
He's a professional boxer, man, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's
like
Mayweather.
he would have won that fight pretty easily, even though I think if you saw the height difference, right? Like, wait,
Yeah.
when they were standing off against each other, Logan Paul Mayweather height difference.
And like the thing is with these two fighters is like Logan Paul not because of fighting, but or boxing, but Floyd Mayweather, even if you don't follow boxing, right? You know that name because he's a boxer. It's Floyd Mayweather, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is huge for Logan, and let's see what happens. I
I mean, I'm excited to see what happens,
oh
man.
yeah,
Like, if you
you
see like the difference in height, right?
yeah,
5'8" versus 6'2",
yep.
like you would think Logan Paul's gonna win, but
Yeah,
man,
Logan is
Mayweather.
no joke himself. I mean, look, he's got a good body, but the boxing I've watched is mainly like Rocky, and I know for a fact that like your body is not everything. It's your technique. Look, I'm not a professional, but what I can gather is like it's your technique and agility,
Hmm.
right? But like who has more experience? How
Definitely.
long?
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, this man's fought so many different championships, right?
yeah,
He's won basically all of them, right?
yeah.
You can't go against someone like
Yeah,
that. Like,
you
just
he's
have,
basically like trained his entire life for it. Whereas Logan, it started what with KSI, it started like 20, I want to say 17, somewhere around then.
Yeah, I mean, he was fighting an unprofessional fighter too, right? They were
Yeah,
both basically the same level. They both
exactly.
started training at the same time, and you're telling me he couldn't win that fight, right? So
Exactly.
you think you're gonna win a fight against a professional boxer, like,
Yeah.
man, it's a pipe dream, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the only
So
advantage I guess Logan has is one, I guess the essence of being an underdog. I know that the essence of being an underdog always it has something to it that, you have a better chance, but he's a lot younger. But we'll see, the matchup. We'll see who's the better fighter. In my opinion, I think it's Mayweather. I think Mayweather knows how to, he has the better technique. He has and
more
that technique,
experience, man. I think that's basically what's puts him over the edge, you know?
yeah, like
But
more experience. He
other
could
than
take some
that,
hits.
right? Like we don't really know what's gonna happen with
We don't
this,
know, yeah.
right?
Again,
It's
we don't.
it's it's a pretty big thing, honestly, and social media especially. Like if it's been already like 1 week, right, and there's been no sign of it, it's probably already like canceled or
Yeah,
Mayweather could probably couldn't care less, right? I
exactly.
mean,
And I think, with these events, I was reading up on it, with Jake Paul and with Logan Paul, their matchup. I understood that they made millions off of that.
exactly. I mean,
So
it's
this
all
is
publicity,
it's all publicity. It's just selling tickets, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's the same thing with like I know Mayweather, he has money. Obviously he has money, but he's retired now,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this is kind of like not a comeback, but this is something, for him to like be in the face of the public again. And this is a perfect opportunity for him to do that because I know that behind the scenes, they're not they're not like, yo, you want to fight, or
They don't have any pent up
they're like
aggression or something
they're
like
like, yo, we're gonna make some good money off of this.
that.
So
That's funny, man.
yeah,
Uh, but other than that, I think that's basically it for the whole Mayweather thing.
yeah,
Um, if you want to move on, I think
yeah,
we could move on to the next topic.
yeah,
So I think the next topic was going to be about Biden's new relief program, right?
yep.
His apparently $1 trillion coronavirus relief bill, right, to send people who are already at risk of falling behind on bills or slipping into poverty out of it, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Like they're basically calling it the New Deal, right?
Mhm.
President Roosevelt's the New Deal.
Yep.
So actually, could you elaborate? Like, could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so in regards to what was happening now is the COVID relief package. So they're proposing like $1.9 trillion, which is a lot of money. And just to put that in some perspective, I think the US GDP is about $20 trillion, $19 trillion because of COVID. And that's just the amount of good, that's just the economy. That's how big it is. And, that's just a number, but in perspective, the next biggest is China, I think at 14 trillion. And then China is a pretty sizable number too. And then the next is Russia, I think, or Japan with 4 trillion. So it just shows like how powerful the US is in terms of GDP.
Yeah,
And just to give you some perspective on the number 1.9 trillion and what it means for us. So there's a COVID relief package, and according to NPR, or President Biden himself says that it could cut child poverty in half. Now,
that's a pretty
I
big statement.
that's a pretty big statement because I know, like, first, it's not a one-time thing. It's not a one-time payment to cut child poverty. It's, maybe for that month you alleviate the poverty, but
I
that's not
mean,
what
you
it is.
can't just cut poverty in half by just doing one
Exactly.
act. It's
Yeah.
not like why were they there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Circumstances, how they're going to use that money, right?
Yeah.
First off, they're splitting up the money into I think they said $600 each, but I'm not sure. Continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't want to misspeak. Wait, he did say that, like, president. So let me just make sure because that's a pretty big statement right here.
So okay, what they said was is that Romney's benefit. So Democrats would give. Okay, so they said Democrats would give caregivers $300 a month for each kid for each child under 6, $250 a month for older kids.
Right.
And then but I think this is President Romney's,
Or yeah, senator.
or it was, yeah, Senator Romney. My bad. Wait.
Yeah. But this is a pretty big thing, like the next, and it's a highly political thing too. They'll need um both. I think I mean, the Democrats have a majority in both. Um I mean, majority in the sense that we have 48 Democrats in the Senate, and we have 50 Republicans, but we have two independents that caucus with the Democrats. And with that too, so that's 50, so that's 50-50. And we have Vice President Harris in office, and the vice president in AP Gov, like, the vice president gives the tiebreaker vote. So again, in the Senate, that's Democrat majority.
Wait, I think I asked this question before, but do you know the whole thing about Roosevelt's New Deal? So what they're comparing it to is basically they're saying it's a small version
Right.
of President Roosevelt's the New Deal, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I was kind of confused about that.
I just wanted to say I found it. So it's on NPR. It says if this proposal survives the wrangling in Congress and makes it to Biden's desk, experts say it could cut child poverty in half. So experts say that, but obviously there's no context behind it. I don't know if they mean for that month, for that year. So
Yeah.
let's not dwell on that for now. So not switching gears, but related to this, the New Deal, right? They're comparing this bill to the New Deal.
Mhm.
So the New Deal is essentially, after World War One, we had President Hoover in office. So this was after the 1920s, or let's say 29 to 30. Uh, so we had President Hoover there at the time, and he was the person. He was the president, one of the presidents during the Great Depression. So the Great Depression was, an economic depression. It saw millions of people unemployed. It saw something called bank runs, and a bank run is something that people lose faith in the banks. They go and they take their money out of the banks, and the banks fail. If the banks fail, it's a crippling blow to the economy, because the banks hold pensions, the banks hold investments in other places. So because of these factors, and obviously there was more in the agricultural sector. Apparently, with cattle, there was more supply than there was demand. So all of these kind of led to the Great Depression. And we see Hoover, his ideology was let let the federal government not give that much aid. The aid that we can give is the spirit of giving. So he encouraged Americans, help your neighbor out, and that's how we're going to get out of this depression. Work for it yourself, which is a kind of, like, very, I don't know, it's a very libertarian way of looking at things. So obviously that didn't help at all. It had its benefits, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into that. But then we see FDR coming in. FDR proposed the New Deal, and he worked basically on these three parameters: reform, recovery, and restoration, something like that. And the New Deal was essentially kind of government backed reform to get the nation out of the Great Depression. So you see several projects happening at the time, which is the FDIC. You see the Works Progress Administration. You see some stuff like HOLC, the Hulk. You see the FHA. So all of these agencies were targeted to getting to the root causes of the Great Depression, right? So, for example, FDIC is the federal insurance, like banking insurance policy kind of thing. Now it still exists. Now it's like if you have 500, your money in the banks is insured up to $250,000.
Yeah.
So if you have 500K, and the bank somehow loses that money, you have 250K still there because it's insured by the government. So
Yeah.
these, and the Works Progress Administration was a housing project, so it employed nearly 3.2 million people, and took make them, gave them a steady wage in a time where that was very coveted, gave them a steady wage, and then, made them not made them they built houses, they built schools, they built sewage systems, they built roads, they planted trees, they had art centers, and this was a very, especially given the time, this was a very racially inclusive project because they strived to include minorities. Obviously, injustices were there, because of the time period, but this was what the New Deal was essentially about. And it's coming out of it's to get the country out of a depression, or to get the country out of the economic stagnation that we're facing. And obviously, because of COVID, that's happening now. And this COVID relief kind of package is they're equating it to the New Deal. I don't know how much I would equate it. It's a like it's a stimulus package basically, but it's targeting, giving money to these sectors essentially is the main part of it.
It's a
But
social safety net, right?
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I wouldn't compare it to the New Deal just because the New Deal, it was, you saw a government agencies being created, whole agencies being created, and it targeted every sector. But this, whereas it's obviously this is not as comprehensive and as in depth. This is a rapid authorization of $1.9 trillion. So yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, it's to help, the economy, right? Help children get out of poverty, right?
yep,
I guess if it works, it works,
yep,
and let's hope it does, right? I mean, we don't know too much about it, as you said
exactly.
before, right? But
I mean, before I think the stimulus packages was like you get an additional sum of money for children, but it's not for each child. But I'm guessing here the amount is much higher, and it
mhm.
makes sense because you can't give just $600 to one family.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? You so let's
First off, it's not fair, right? To some families, right,
yeah,
that have more children. First off,
exactly.
kind of explains itself.
And like, oh, sorry about that. But like people argue like, how do you like use so much like government money? And yeah, you could argue that who's paying the taxes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's one point. But the other side is like, there's two parts to this. There's like, do you just give $1.9 trillion, or maybe if you alleviate taxation on businesses, big businesses, then okay, that gets the economy moving again.
yeah, yeah.
It starts production, so that gets people to buy it. So yeah, that's I think that's basically it about the
Pretty interesting, man. It's
yeah. I
pretty
think
interesting
right
stuff.
now doesn't it have to pass Senate or something?
Yeah, it has to pass. I think it's like Congress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or what's it? Sorry. It has to pass the House on Friday, right? So
oh, right.
today.
Oh,
So what's it? It was intended to create several new safety or new social safety nets, right?
right.
But that's basically all it says, right? But I think that it's some pretty good stuff, man.
Yeah,
I didn't know that actually about the whole New Deal
right.
from President Roosevelt.
Yeah, it's a
But
whole
yeah, my bad. But I guess on to the next topic,
yeah.
if you want. All right. So I was reading up on this and I saw TikTok to pay 92 million to settle class action suit over theft of personal data. Um, well, what it says here, right, is that TikTok has agreed to pay 92 million uh, to settle dozens of lawsuits alleging that the popular video sharing app harvested personal data from users, including information using facial recognition technology without consent, and shared the data with third parties, some of which were based in China. Right.
Ooh,
So I think this goes back to the lawsuit back. I forgot when it was. I think it was a few months ago, or like
I
where
think
the whole thing was like TikTok
yeah.
was supposed to be canceled or like taken down or
Oh,
banned.
yeah.
Right.
I know Trump was proposing that it's a threat to national security because a Chinese company is taking like data from American users, and it could like use they could use that to an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. So what they're saying here is that the settlement is the result of 21 federal lawsuits filed mostly on behalf of minors, some as young
Oh,
as 6 years old.
Dude,
That's crazy, man.
what were they stealing? What what from a oh my
To
god.
make a lawsuit about it too. If
Yeah.
as young as 6 years old, imagine that. When I was six
That
years old, man, I don't think I could
I
think
think
that far.
first
It was probably the parents, like
right. Like
most
that's
likely the parents.
this is messed up. Like, do you use Safari or Chrome?
I use Safari. I use
Yeah,
Safari.
so do you see the Safari has prevented these many trackers from profiling you over these many
Yeah,
websites?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you click on it and it says like these let me show you guys right now. Like I'm just gonna read it. It says 173 in the last 7 days, Safari has prevented 173 trackers from profiling you. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And I click on it and it's just who are the trackers? Right? It says the websites, right? Okay, this manager, there's a random number of websites, and then I look, and then on this next panel it says owner, and I'm telling you, half of the owners are Google, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Amazon. Like it's these companies taking or tracking you through the
Taking
different
so
web.
much data from you, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Like you have to be careful. You have to
yeah,
be careful.
like
I mean, if you do you know, so there's this thing about Apple launching its new update, right?
mm,
Its new iOS update.
right,
So actually, the update is basically supposed to stop companies from tracking you, stuff like that.
right.
So Facebook is having an all-out war on on this new update because they're absolutely against it, right? So what they're
Mhm.
saying is that what's it? So okay, so what it says here, like just the intro, two titans of Silicon Valley, Facebook and Apple are in a bitter fight that centers on the iPhone data of millions of people, whether the companies should be able to the track that data as easily as they do now. Facebook believes the answer is yes. So on Wednesday, it is unveiled by a video voiced by Grace Jones, aimed at currying the public's favor. So what will happen? So basically, this whole update, I think Facebook is trying to stop them from doing it, right? As you know, the whole uh, Facebook allegations on from
Yeah,
them tracking data too.
yeah.
I'm
I
not sure
know.
if you know more about that,
I
but
know Zuckerberg was called to Congress. Dude, watch those tapes. It's the funniest thing you'll ever see. You know what happened there? So Zuckerberg was called to Congress like to testify about, data usage and um stuff like that, privacy laws. And a congressman, and some of these or senator, some of our representatives are old,
yeah, yeah,
right? Not some, a lot of them are old. They're like
yeah,
in their
yeah.
70s, right? So one guy is like, and not just Zuckerberg, but Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Google,
Mhm.
he was called there too, and he's like, and a congressman or senator stands up and he's like, if I use this phone, I get up and I walk over there, will my phone, will you as Google be able to track that? And then Sundar Pichai is like, sir, that's an iPhone. I don't, if you're referring to Google being able to track you, or are you referring to the phone being able to track you? And he's like, the phone. If I take my SIM card out and if I turn my Wi-Fi off, will Google be able to track me? I was like, sir, if the Wi-Fi is off, Google won't be able to track you if you're concerned about that. And he's like, that's Apple. I'm the CEO of Google, right? And he kept saying, will this phone be able to track me? So I was like, dude, like these, come on. And he asked Zuckerberg, and he asked like Zuckerberg the same, not the same thing. He's asked like, how does Facebook make money? And then Zuckerberg with a straight face, he's like, Senator, we run ads. And he's like, and then the senator just becomes quiet. He's like, oh, okay. But yeah, I mean,
Unprepared, man,
this,
unprepared. They don't know what they're asking.
yeah.
It's actually
But relating to the anti-theft thing that a couple months ago it happened. They
Mhm.
were called over Zoom. I remember there were It was actually a sight to see. You saw Sundar Pichai, you saw not Satya Nadella there, or the representative from Microsoft. You saw Jeff Bezos. You saw Tim Cook from Apple. All of them in a conference call together, right? And it's crazy to look at, because one by one they were talking like how does your company like take data, and how does your company work with data? Does it sell data? And the answers, man, the answers are like 2 seconds ago they met with their lawyers and their lawyers told them what to say. It was the funniest thing ever.
I mean, what they're saying here, right, is that if people were prompted, so it
Yeah.
says a recent study group from Tap Research found that 55% of people surveyed they would not let Facebook track them across apps if they were prompted, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of big, right? If people were prompted, they would not allow it, right?
Yeah.
And this update by Apple, right, is definitely gonna. So it says here actually, so this updates Apple's update could result in a 7% hit to Facebook's revenue.
Hmm.
That's okay. That's makes sense why they're so pissed off
Yeah.
about it.
No,
I
I
mean,
mean, you would expect Facebook to be a little more like discreet about it, but they're like, nah, bro, we gotta like help, or no, we gotta protect our own revenue, and it's crazy.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
at least tell them that you're doing something like that, so that
exactly,
they could make the smart choice of using your app or not, right? Or your
exactly.
program or not.
I would expect like some backroom deals with Apple, like okay, just let us get the data. But Facebook is just like, bruh, we steal the data and we get money and to the public. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, it says here it is personal between Cook and Zuckerberg. Okay, so
Yeah.
in remarks delivered in late January at a technology and privacy conference in Brussels, Cook underscored Apple's emphasis on data privacy. It seems no piece of information is too private or personal to be surveilled, monetized, and aggregated into a 360-degree view of your life, Cook said.
Hmm.
Okay. Cook never mentioned Facebook by name, but in discussing a tech company's business model run amok, his target was clear.
Yep.
Okay, so
Wh-
damn man,
What do you
dude.
think? Like, on one hand, I guess the argument kind of becomes like, okay, is your data yours? Does it belong to you? Or is data something that's, it sounds ironic, but is data something that's subjective, to the, and does it belong to the
Well, I
person
mean, you can you
collecting it?
can find out so much about a person, right? Just
Yeah.
by what they search up, right? If you look at it, right, we search up so much on a daily basis, right? Like,
Yeah.
say it's between me and you, right? What colleges we want to go to. If a person looked at what we searched up, they could basically find out what our dreams were, right? Like what we
Yeah.
wanted to go to, what we wanted to do, right? What we like to do in our free time, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like it's actually crazy how much you can find out by
Like our
just
deepest, like darkest, like stuff.
secrets.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. Like it's crazy. Like they
I
basically.
took a marketing class last year. Did you take a marketing class you with me, or
I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure
thinking
yet.
about it? Yeah, bro. It's interesting. Take it. But what we learned there was essentially we learned how to use the data, like, and how to quantify it and how to use that. You know what I mean? And so that shows like they have processes in place to take your data, decipher it. And honestly, I can't blame them because, the thing becomes like, let's say, for example, like you're talking to a person, right? And data, it can be anything. Data is just information. So let's say you're talking to a person and you notice characteristics about that person. You notice that, okay, he shakes his hand with his right hand, so he's a right-handed person. He talks like this, so maybe he's very well educated. He has a British accent, so he's British. So these things are essentially, it's data,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then, we tailor ourselves to position, and we position ourselves to talk to the person based on what we observe, right? Is that person being a little like, not too friendly? So then you don't talk to them, maybe you talk to them differently, right? So
yeah.
that's data, right? And then it becomes like, well, how can you take that data? It's not yours,
I
right?
mean, yeah. I mean, you can make that argument, but
Right.
like,
And it's the same thing here because it's like, okay, Facebook is creating the platform, or Apple is creating the platform where you are voluntarily typing in right? Like no one's forcing you to buy a MacBook, or no one's forcing you to get Facebook, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're voluntarily, clicking, and we don't read the terms and conditions, but you're clicking okay, and then you're searching it up, typing it up, and then can you expect companies to not collect data? I
I
guess
mean,
this can be a very
it's
big
your
argument.
preference, right? I mean, if you
Yeah,
want, search results based on what you like, right? If you like getting that,
yeah,
but you don't want your, data going out there, then
yeah, yeah.
that's a
I
huge
guess the
conflict, right? That you have to figure out,
yeah,
right? But I also think that they should prompt you, or at least
yeah,
tell you something like, okay,
yeah,
we're going to be finding out
yeah,
what you like
yeah,
to do, what you like to search up, or
yeah,
stuff like we see that, right?
yeah,
At least prompt the user, tell them that we're seeing this. Do you want to still use their app or not? You
yeah,
know?
and they're smart as hell, because the prompting thing you're doing is when you're clicking the yes on the terms and conditions.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're just being like, okay, from now we're just gonna take your data. Or when you go to a website and says accept cookies, right? You just want to read, so you just like accept all
Dude,
cookies.
I don't think I've actually like ever read terms and conditions. Like I don't think
Yeah,
anybody actually reads that. We just scroll all the way down to the bottom,
you just
press
put
accept, you're
okay,
fine.
right? So
I
I guess
mean,
legally
unless
they are covered.
yeah,
But it obviously it becomes a question of morality. And the question I think is, should they sell it? Once they have it, obviously then it becomes
then it's
property. Then they can sell it. And then I guess I'm not a lawyer, or I'm not like, a judge, but this is a perfect kind of Supreme Court case that you would see.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
maybe we can expect to see something like that in the future, because right now it's just Congress that's
We
debating it.
actually don't know what they're doing with their data, man. It's actually
Yeah, they
it's
can be selling it to anyone, anywhere,
pretty
and they
scary
are.
if you think
It's
about
it's
it.
it's scary, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah, yeah. Damn, man. That was a lot. That was a lot.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't deny that it does help. Um,
At least knowing, right?
Knowing, yeah, like it helps. It helps the fact that the moment I say something, something is like recording me, and no, not that aspect, but I'm searching something up, and if I'm searching something up, I have interest in that, and I get Amazon recommendations. That's a good thing,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I'm like, do I really care that Amazon is looking at I'm looking
What
at
I search up, yeah.
microphones, like no matter who gets it, no matter who, like, do I really care? But then it goes deeper, is like, are they recording me? Like, even when like my mic is off, like my computer is off, is that possible? Because we
See,
saw
there's
that.
so much we don't know, right?
Yeah.
That we just need to be prompted about, but they're just keeping quiet about, you
Yeah.
know?
And we know
Um,
it's possible. We know that they can do that.
they can
Um,
definitely do it, man. I mean,
you know what happened with Snowden, right?
no, 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 no.
So Snowden, like, he was like uh a contractor for the federal government. Obviously, like, he's Edward Snowden, and he defected and leaked thousands of files based on,
Mhm.
like, okay, like, basically the government's taking your data, or not just your data. They can remotely turn your computer on, off, and turn your camera on and off
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the other side of the world. And that's what I saw in the movie Snowden, on, I think it was on Netflix.
yeah. I think it's on Netflix. Yeah,
So it's crazy. Like, we know the capabilities of that. I think it's definitely something to look at. We
the
can't just
power you hold, especially in like
yeah.
this age, like it's crazy. You could halfway across the world.
That's why data science as a field is increasing so much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, data engineers, because all of that data, you need someone to sort it out. So it's crazy. Data is the new way, man. Data is everything. You can tell you anything about a person.
Yeah. Oh my god. Actually, just thinking about it, feeling like,
Mm.
damn. Well, I think that's all for today, right? I think that's all the top. We covered all of our topics,
Yeah,
and I think we should wrap it up.
yeah,
All right.
man.
Well, thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Yeah.
Um, hope you guys tune in for the next podcast next Saturday. All
Next
right. Thank
Saturday.
you. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, we'll see you next time.